Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. And tonight I'll be sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all the episodes of the podcast and links to social media, ways to donate, and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, which is salcidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions for shows, or if you have stories of experiences, whether they're your own or others you trust. Always happy to either read those on the show or have you join me on the show to talk about them in person in that way. I've already went over the plans for the week yesterday, so I think I can skip that. And so I think that means I can just get right to the stories here. So thank you all for being here, whether you listen to the live stream or to the podcast or YouTube feeds. Always appreciate the support. So, okay, I guess I'll get on with the stories here. Looks like so far everything is working okay. And that is good. Okay. So, this first story says, I sat on this story for about 2 years. It still haunts me to this day. So here it is. One night in California, a few of my friends and I decided to go shark fishing at a spot that one of my buddies said he had good luck at. We set up our rods, dropped the bait onto the kayak, got tents sorted, and started relaxing and having a good time. We got some beech wood for our fire. Everything was great. I think they had a few beers, but no one was super intoxicated. I say this so everyone understands that everyone was coherent. At around 2 or 3 a.m., we still had the bonfire going, and I decided I needed to take a leak. I walked about 50 yards from where we had the fire. I still have no idea why I walked so far. Usually I just go behind the tent. That's wonderful. As I was finishing up, I caught a glimpse of something on 4 legs, pale as the moon, scaling down an 80-foot cliff. It was a full moon, and the spot we were at had a steep walkway to get down, surrounded by cliffs on one side and ocean on the other. Whatever it was crawled at a speed that shocked me. At that moment, I knew something was wrong, and it was closing the gap on the distance between me and my friends. My fight or flight kicked in, and I tried to run back to my friends. But for some reason, I was super off balance. Like I couldn't walk straight or run at all. I probably sounded like a madman, but trying to shout out to my friends, I couldn't put the words together. I was so scared. I was able to get close enough to my friends to where they saw I was panicked. And that's when the two of them got a glimpse of what I saw. When it had noticed all 3 of us had spotted it, it turned and climbed the cliff as fast as it had come down. The best way I could describe the creature is, if any of you, they mentioned a video game here, but they say my skin still crawls when I think about this story. And basically, the reference like a zombie or like a skinwalker. Although I did read some of the comments in the web page, and a lot of them said more uh, sounded more like either a crawler, like one of those, um, or a rake, which is basically those are both different kinds of um, creatures that have been seen. Basically, tall, skinny, um, really pale. So, but the part that I found amazing was just the cliff part of it. The way whatever this was went down and up the cliff with apparently no problem. Um, sounds like it was good at climbing, whatever it was. So, but so yeah, I found that story and I had to share it because I don't know what that would be. Um, but that's intense, definitely. So, but so that's the first story for the night. I'm always glad when I find stories of either cryptids or UFOs because a lot of these sites, it's mostly almost like ghost stories, but which is fine. Those are my favorites in a way. But I'm always glad when I can find other things to share as well. So, so I'll get on with the next story here, and we'll go from there. So this one says, uh, while I was reading some of these stories, and they're just talking about a website, I remembered this experience. My old primary school was creepy to me. I remember always being scared of walking around the halls, and I hated being in classrooms alone. There was nothing wrong with the school. It just creeped me out. It was quite a nice school and wasn't that old, so I'm not sure why it creeped me out so much. One day, it was really sunny outside. I was about 10 or 11, and my teacher sent my friends, two other friends, and I to get some sports equipment from the hall. I guess they mean the gym. Um, as they wanted us to do physical education outside to be in the sun. The rest of the class went outside, and my two friends and I went to the sports hall. First, I will say how the hall was structured. It was huge. There were 6 doors in the hall. I guess so. It could be a hallway. Two led to a path that brought you to the pitch at the back of the school. One was an exit to a hall leading to more classrooms, and another led to the principal's office. The other 2 doors were for the storeroom, where all of our sports equipment was kept, and the other to a small kitchen that teachers would use for their lunch and when cooking with their class. All of the doors in this hall were extremely heavy, and there was no way of closing them without hearing a loud bang. It didn't help that the walls were plain, so the sound of the doors echoed through the hall. If someone would come in, you could hear the door and their footsteps. We entered the hall to get tennis rackets and assumed because the rackets weren't needed until later, we would sit and talk for a bit before heading to PE. I checked the kitchen to see if anyone was there, but no one was. And we went into the store room to grab the rackets. The door had 2 windows, but they were only small slits. But they were big enough so you could see out there. We stopped talking while searching for the required sports equipment and went to leave. One of the girls I was with turned off the light and went to grab the handle to the storeroom door, while the other girl and I stood behind her. Right when she went to open the door, someone walked past the door. And I don't mean they were far away from the door, they were right beside it. The figure was tall and didn't even look at us. It was like a shadow. It had no definitive features, apart from what I thought was football gear. We all froze and stood there staring at the door. And the following conversation went as so. Did you see that? Asked the girl in front of us. The other girl and I, yes. I said yes. The girl beside me said, it was probably someone in 6th class, the year above us, as the figure was tall. We opened the doors, and I went and checked the kitchen. No one. When we had seen it, we noticed it had gone in the direction of the doors leading outside, which were significantly louder than the others. They were closed shut, and we hadn't seen anyone outside it. Panicked, we left the hall and just stayed silent. When we got to the back pitch where our class was, we told them all what had happened, and they all followed it up by telling us their own experiences in the hall, with hearing whispers, hearing people walking when they were alone in the halls, etc. I had experiences like hearing people walk in the hall when it was empty, but never saw anything up until that point. The girl who was beside me in the storeroom described the same thing as me. A dark figure that sped quickly across the window of the door. Later that day, one of the girls and I were sent on a message for our teacher and walked down the hall that was filled with pictures of classes from previous years. Everyone always stopped in that hall to look at our old class photos. So we stopped and looked at the older pictures that were taken when a lot of our teachers attended the school. On the wall, there was a memorial for a young boy who had attended the school about 20 years before us, who unfortunately passed away. My friend looked at it confused and looked at me. I asked her what was wrong, and she said, wasn't that the boy who passed the storeroom in the hall this morning? I was pretty sure she was just trying to scare me, but the boy in the picture was wearing a sports uniform. To be more specific, a football uniform. To this day, I explain what we saw in that hall. And it makes it creepier that we all saw it and recalled seeing similar things. So that's where that one is. Sounds like they have one at school. Or at least some kind of activity on there. Considering the writer of that story plus the friends told other kids about that, their experience, and then they all started talking, and other kids had other experiences in the same place. So maybe it was that kid. I don't know whether it was the spirit or some kind of a time anomaly, although hard to say. But anyway, so let's see here. I guess I'll go on with the next story here. So this one says, I was only around 5 or 6 at the time. Bear with me. I lived in a 2-story house, my room being at the top of the stairs. I'd had a nightmare and decided to come down to my parents and sleep in their bed for the night. It was dark out, so it was probably between midnight and 3:45 a.m. So my house has a front door and then a hallway. At the very start of that hallway, there was a room to the left and to the right. One was my parents' room, and one was our front room used for storage, and it had a piano in it. As I walked down the stairs and the hallway, I heard the piano playing. I don't even know why, but I thought, oh, mom or dad must be playing the piano, which is something they never did. I reached the front door, and as soon as I poked my head through the front room doorway, the music cuts off. I then ran to my parents' bed and slept. I always think of this story whenever I hear paranormal or ghost experiences. I'm not a superstitious person, but this has me stumped. And that's where that one ends. Stories like that, I always wonder if it's something actually playing that piano physically, or if it's just somehow making the sounds of the piano. I'd be interested to know the story behind that piano. Who owned it? If it really meant a lot to someone before at some point. Just more details on the piano, I guess, would help. Maybe help explain a little bit more of why that happened. Although it doesn't sound like it sounds like it only happened the one time, based on the story. So, I don't know. Maybe the writer was still partially asleep. Maybe, I don't know if they were walking around. I guess you're still kind of waking up. I know it takes me an hour to wake up whenever I get up. But still, that is odd for that to happen like that. It sounds like it scared them, so I'm sure they were awake by that time. So, and that classic response of just going back to bed and falling asleep. I've been there as well. More so when I was a kid, but yeah. So neat story there. Sad that it had to frighten the kid, but still, like I said, I just wonder if it was just the sound or if it was the actual piano playing in that one. So let's see here. I'll go on to the next story. Let's see here. Okay. So this one says, this happened a bit ago. So my friend and others and I were at a party for a play that we did. And therefore we were at school around 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And this happened around 8:30ish. I left the party room to go to use the restroom. As I was in the cubicle, I heard a man and a woman speaking, but the only people in the building were my friends and I. And I'm guessing they mean all teenagers, maybe, or maybe older teenagers. So I headed back to my friends to see them bolting down the stairs. They were up there as they heard noises. There was no one up there, though, and no one downstairs either. The restroom was downstairs. So we got out of that building. And that's where that one ends. It's a short one. But, again, coming back to sounds. Sounds are always interesting to me in a way because I feel like they could be even more so than sightings or objects moving. I feel like they could be echoes from other times or other dimensions possibly. When it's just audio, I don't know why I feel like that, but I feel like when it's just something like that you're hearing a little ways away, there's more options as to what that can be that's making that sound. So, but a lot of sounds tonight in these stories. Excuse me. So, um, but I guess I'll move on to the next story here. And I guess this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode tonight, but that's okay. I always pick the same amount of stories, so it is what it is. So this next story says, I stayed in the house when I was dating this one individual who lived in the level below. This house was haunted by a little girl and an older man. Both had died at this house, and their deaths were not related to each other. Different families, and were in different decades. The main house was occupied by the landlord, who was not in the best health, who walked very slow and shuffled. One evening, after going to bed, after 10 p.m., laying in the bedroom below, I heard these little footsteps above me running around in the kitchen and living room. No dogs and no other company. It was not the landlord either. It sounded like a child running around the room. I forgot about this experience until now. And that's where that one ends. I didn't realize some of these were shorter ones, otherwise I may have picked more stories. But doesn't sound like it was the landlord, based on the description of that person. And then the description of the sounds. I wonder how the writer knows about, maybe they researched it? The history of the house? I don't know. It definitely doesn't sound, like I said, doesn't sound like the landlord there. So maybe it was that little girl that was there, possibly. So lots of sounds tonight. I didn't plan that either, but it's just kind of how it happened. But anyway, so let's see here. I believe. Okay, yep, I have one more story here left. And this one, whenever I find stories about kind of somewhat famous or pretty famous places that are said to be haunted, I like to share them when I can. And this was one of those stories. It says, one December, my husband and I attended a party on the Queen Mary. And that's a ocean liner boat that is permanently docked in California. And we rented a room on the ship for the occasion. I was very excited, as I had never been on a ship like that before. I had also heard stories about one of the pools being haunted by the ghost of a little girl. After the party ended, around 11 p.m., we changed our clothes into something more comfortable, because I wanted to wander the ship and explore. They kicked everyone off the ship who wasn't staying the night there. We spent a couple of hours wandering that amazing ship, inside and out. Excuse me. Before we finished up, we went back down to the level the party had been on, only now it was completely empty. It was the same level as the pool, by the way, which they had closed up. But you could still look through the windows, which I absolutely did. I spent a good 5 minutes with my face pressed up to those windows before we walked on. I didn't see anything. After walking down a short hallway, we were in the enormous empty ballroom, which had been so busy just a few hours earlier. My husband picked up a broken drumstick left behind from one of the bands. Just then, from the direction of the pool, came a loud child's laugh coming towards us, as if a little kid was running in their direction down the hallway, laughing loudly. I immediately locked eyes with my husband. "It's just a kid," he said, dismissively. But there was no kid. We were alone on that entire floor. I looked at my watch, and it said 1:01 a.m. We went back to our room, but saw no one else along the way. Once in bed, I started looking around online about the Queen Mary ghost stuff. I found a forum that mentioned a common occurrence is hearing children's laughter around the pool area. We then discussed how we never saw any children that night, even during the party, which was for 21 and over. So why would we? We went to sleep feeling in awe and a tad eerie. I can still hear that laughter in my mind, clear as day. And that's it for that story. So again, it is really ironic in a way. So many of these stories tonight were about sound. Let's see here. APOC says sound is frequency, creating patterns of matter. It is called cymatics. Three-dimensional cymatics is structure. Sound or frequency has the potential to construct form. Okay. Yeah, that's really amazing. All of the things like that, kind of basically scientific ideas like that, or any science really to me, just it just I kind of get it. I'll just say that, but not always, and not very well. But yeah, that is neat though. Maybe a source for ghosts could be, yeah. Um, so I don't know. It does seem pretty amazing how so many of those stories tonight revolved around sound. Like I said, I didn't plan that. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's I've heard so many stories about that boat in particular having the spirit of a young girl on there, and I always wonder. Again, I haven't looked into. I did once, but I didn't find anything. I may have to look again. I wonder if there actually was any. I mean, hopefully not, but if there actually was any kind of an accident or death of a child in that boat that led to that, or if it's again going back to that idea of the legend and people hearing about it and looking for that spirit to be there when maybe it wasn't even there before, and then their expectations and the energy they give off somehow makes it and or draws something there or someone there. That I always wonder about that in cases like that where there's such a, because I've heard that legend about a girl being in and near that pool. I mean, through different podcasts and TV shows, I've heard that for, oh my gosh, probably at least a decade, maybe even further back. Yeah, could even be further back. So, I don't know, but yeah, those are some neat stories tonight. I'm glad I was able to um find to find those, especially that theme that kind of ran through a lot of the stories tonight. So hope you all enjoyed it. And that'll be it for tonight. Thank you all for listening. And I'll be back tomorrow with another book review. Going to get back to the Lovecraft, the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, and review a couple of stories from there. So, thank you all again, and I will talk to you all tomorrow night on the next episode of South Cedo Paranormal. Take care.